All right. Hello, Seb of Shy T Games.
Hello
Uh,
there.
how are you? We've already been talking, but hello. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Busy on the project, but loving every minute of it.
Definitely. So, do you want to talk a little bit about Project Electric Sheep?
Yeah, certainly. So Project Electric Sheep is an AI-powered dream simulator, which I'm pretty proud of that catchphrase. Like it certainly engages curiosity, doesn't it? It's not something you hear often. um, Basically, how it works is it's in theory quite simple, in practice a little more complicated. The player goes to bed and they type in what they wish to dream about, and then they enter a dream world, a creative interpretation of anything they type in, which is of course something which 4 years ago would have been deemed impossible for a video game. If you make a video game, it's maybe you've got a bit of procedural generation, a bit of random number generation going on there, but generally the bounds of a video game was predefined by what had been implemented by developers and above all by story writers. The story was generally fixed, or at least previously defined. But our game uses OpenAI's GPT-3, which is literally a game changer in that regards, because it allows us to actually have a certain number of creative decisions not take place, during the game's production, but actually take place in real time while the level is being generated and while the level is being loaded. So when you go to bed in this game and you enter a dream world, a number of things are happening. Firstly, the game is figuring out what your dream is about, what's relevant to spawn into the dream world based upon your input. If you're dreaming of loneliness, it might decide that a desert is relevant. If you're dreaming of claustrophobia, it might decide that a bustling city is relevant. And it starts thinking of names of characters, not just random names. Well, sometimes random names, but often names which are specifically relevant to your chosen input. If you dream of heaven and hell, you might have Ezekiel, Satan, and so forth. And it's basically creating characters. And then once you enter this world, you can then speak to these characters, and their dialogue is generated in real time by GPT-3. And the aim is very much to just push the boundaries of real-time creative decision-making by an AI, which is an exciting project to be a part of, to say the least. I would say it hasn't been done before, but I guess AI Dungeon has touched on this direction before. But I think in this particular approach we're taking is something quite novel and previously unexplored territory, which is very exciting. Yeah.
Very exciting, definitely. It was very cool, just kind of like stumbling upon. Like you said, I saw AI Dream Simulator, and I was like, click. Yeah, because I really love like the sort of like surreal, like absurd sort of stuff that GPT-3 can come out that
Oh,
is
absolutely.
often like profound, like reworded truths in a really like interesting way.
Yeah.
How, like, I suppose at this point I'll probably say this towards the end of the festival. I feel like people have seen people like designing prompts and stuff. So how are you getting like specific, like what parameters are you doing to get like character generation versus like name generation? Are there like tricks and stuff that you found that you like?
Yes. I mean, and this is something that's constantly changing, and the technique I'm currently using will most likely not be the technique I'm using next week. This is a very unprecise science which constantly shifts. And I mean, this has also shifted a lot in the past because, originally I started working on this game in 2019, and I was actually using GPT-2 back then, and GPT-2 was just a whole other beast. GPT-2 was actually very much the basis of the dream aesthetic, because whilst, as you said, GPT-3 can produce dreamlike stuff, GPT-2 was far less coherent, far more disconnected, and far more dreamlike. Like GPT-2 produced dialogue that felt like it was straight out of a fever dream, whereas GPT-3 produces dialogue which often feels relatively coherent, albeit a little bit a little bit head scratching, a little bit sort of, that doesn't quite make sense, but close enough.
Yeah.
So in terms of the actual prompts, we basically just write a script. We have, as I'm sure you know, GPT-3 and GPT-2. These models work by completing prompts. So you give it the beginning and it just keeps on writing. So we have a bunch of prompts. And, I'm constantly adding new ones and just occasionally even removing some when I notice that they're not as effective. But I have a little tool, sort of like almost like a casting room, where I can just it's just a little debug room where I have like a circle of 20 NPCs, and I give them the dream topic, and then I can just go around talking to each of them and just like rating them and figuring out, okay, yeah, no, that was some interesting dialogue, and I will I have a system which then automatically marks, allows me to rate them, and then I can go back and go through my prompts and just have a look at the average scores that I've given the results of each prompt. Because the whole thing is that the way that it works is, of course, very probabilistic by nature. So you can't really just go in and say, like, write a prompt and then get a good response and be like, oh, okay, this is a good prompt, because it could be that was a 0.001% chance of it producing something that good, and the rest of the time it's producing crap. It's just very hard to predict. So you've really got to approach it with a somewhat scientific angle and sort of do a lot of testing. You've got to just keep speaking to the characters, keep figuring out which prompts produce better results and which produce flakier results. But the prompts themselves, sorry.
No, keep going.
So the prompts themselves, until recently, the prompts were just chosen randomly from a large database of prompts. And these prompts, they're in generally they're in a script format where you have name of the character, name of the dialogue, name of the other character, dialogue. But in these prompts, obviously, certain things are just factored in. They're just swapped in, mad-libbed in, so to speak. So the name of the character is, of course, replaced with, for example, Satan, if that's a character name which was generated at the beginning of the level and is therefore deemed relevant to the topic. And of course, the topic is factored in. So if you have a script saying, what do you think about X? That would then be factored into, what do you think about life after death, if that's what you're dreaming about. But yet what I'm currently working on is actually tagging all of these prompts. So for example, that prompt, what do you think of, would be tagged with opinion. Have you heard of, let me think of an example. Are you scared of what will happen on the so-and-so? And then that would be tagged as an event. Oh my God, have you seen X? That would be tagged as a person. So that we can hopefully actually cater the dialogue to not just provide opinion and discussing, but also provide really quite dynamic, different types of character dialogue based upon what the dream is about, so to speak.
Yeah. So most of the prompts that you're generating are questions in script format almost, or trying to get answers to, or not trying to get answers, but prompts that are in script format. Does that make sense?
They're all in script format because that just works really well. GPT-3.
Are you using colons or hyphens? Because I feel like it picks up on all that sort of little nonsense.
Exactly, yeah, colons and capitalized character names, because that is very clearly a script format. A lot of this experimentation sort of carried over from the GPT-2 days. Back with the GPT-2, it was very important to have everything as clear as possible and as consistent as possible, because GPT-2 was, well, GPT-3, but not quite as sharp, on picking up on patterns. So back in the GPT-2 days, all of the prompts would contain the dream topic at least 4 or 5 times repeated, because you really had to hammer home that this thing was important. And now with GPT-3, we can get away with making the prompt far shorter and still get very impressive results. because that's also something that has to be considered. Unfortunately, it's GPT-3. The API access is not free, and it's actually paid for on a per token approach now. And the prompts totally count as tokens. So you can get the best level of generation by giving it a script, like just a whole full-on script of a normal dialogue. But that will get very expensive very quickly. So you have to really, a lot of it is trying to figure out the best yield, effectively, of tokens in and quality of dialogue out. And then occasionally you can get lucky and you can just find sort of like a really simple prompt, which just immediately latches onto a certain style and gives a interesting, dramatic response.
Do you have a certain prompt like that in mind? A sort of like aha moment?
For example, we have some NPCs, characters in the game, who just monologue on the topic. And by just starting a monologue with a name of character, X, so when I say X, I mean the dream topic. Yeah. So dream topic is dangerous and we should be wary of it, or dream topic is the future. Something like that is just so simple, but it just immediately tells GPT-3, okay, this is like a very confident, overly confident sort of monologue, something you might find in the comments section in Reddit, something really sure of itself. It's going for like a really brave kind of pushing a point home. And like with just like so few words, you can just immediately get something which feels very lifelike and dramatic.
Definitely. So yeah, you've had access to GPT-3 for a long time. And you said you started working on this back when it was only GPT-2 available to the public. What kind of got you into the machine learning world in general to start off?
Well, this is a story. Well, yeah, no, Connor, my friend Connor. So Connor and I, we studied together at the TUM here in Munich. And Connor is a big old machine learning nerd, a very talented one at that. So this project, it was actually originally a game jam project. A game jam is a sort of hackathon kind of event where you have like one weekend to try and create a game from scratch. And I take part in a fair few of these. They're generally quite a fun exercise to get your creativity flowing. So back in 2018, I was taking part in a game jam with Connor and I think 4 other people. And the topic was exploration. And we were sort of brainstorming and Connor was like, okay, Connor isn't a game developer himself. He's a very good coder, but not necessarily a games coder. So he was saying, I'll just support you guys, bit of moral support, bit of code here and there. And, I was thinking we should definitely make the most of having Connor on our team. So how can we make a game about exploration which uses his machine learning expertise? So we came up with the concept of an AI-powered dream simulator. And back then it was quite basic. It was it was basic, but also fascinating. Like the curiosity and the fascination was already there. Like back then we used Google Trends to sort of figure out things that were related to the topic. We just used Google Images to just straight up pull images in of anything, which we're probably not going to be able to get away with that in the commercial release because it's legally dubious to say the least. But on a game jam, I think it's kind of okay. So at the end of the game jam, we had something which was interesting, but a hot mess. Anyway, so later, Connor and I, we thought this thing had potential. So we sat down for a week and we've decided to sort of brainstorm, figure out how we can expand this thing. And that's when Connor discovered GPT-2. And like we were both just fascinated because this was game changing. Like up to this point, we'd had text generation in the game, but the text generation was generated by a few pre-trained models. Like it could generate text in the style of Shakespeare, Skyrim, and anime. That's all.
The Holy Trinity.
The Holy Trinity. Yeah. Quite a constrained palette. And here was GPT-2 just able to write, those 3 styles and also the rest of them pretty much. We were just so bowled over. And above all, we were struck by how dreamlike it felt, the dialogue it was generating. So yeah, no, from that point on, like I was kind of quite invested in seeing where this machine learning text-based transformer model game can go. And Connor, he was, I think, already working for a company beside his studies who dealt with machine learning. And he actually, interestingly, this was back in, I guess, 2019, 2018. What is time? I think 2019. He actually ended up recreating, because the whole thing with GPT-2 was, there was a controversy because OpenAI, who up to that point had been releasing everything, all of their work openly, they didn't release the full sized model, deeming it too dangerous. And Connor actually went and recreated the full sized model.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which sort of put him on the map for a little bit. And that in turn led to our now executive producer, Guy Gadney, getting in touch and funding the project enough to allow me to quit my job at the time and work full time on this since then. And yeah, no, that's where the rabbit hole began, my entrance to the machine learning rabbit hole, and it's been quite a journey.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Kind of on that note, with them not releasing the full GPT-2 model because danger, et cetera, how do you feel about GPT-3 and other emergent forthcoming AI and that element of it?
I mean, yeah, no, it will be a shit show. I mean, GPT-3, it will be released. Like that's the thing. I mean, I don't know if you know, but Connor, he founded a group called Alufa, and they're
trying to open source GPT-3?
They are the guys.
Okay, yeah.
So and they're not the only people. If they don't do it, somebody else will. It's a matter of time. It's inevitable. Like I think it's very, very sensible to be skeptical. I certainly am. But to be skeptical and then say, oh, we should ban AI. That's not really quite an option. That's not quite the discussion that we need to be having right now. It's not really helping anyone, because this is often a problem when discussing new technological developments. If you were to talk about the development of the automobile back in the oldie time days, of course you could make a very good case for not developing it. It's certainly had huge ecological impact. It certainly results in a lot of death, but realistically you would have been far better off looking to talking with governments, looking to encourage control, rather than just saying ban cars, because ultimately it's somewhat inevitable. So yeah, no, I think it is going to be a shit show, and I think it's going to leave a lot of questions which in need of answering. Like also, just politically in terms of work and our relationship with work, and what should be done by humans, what should remain done by humans, even if it can be done better by a computer. I mean, again, not necessarily new questions. These are questions which have been consistently asked, since the first industrial revolution. It's just entering territory which we previously thought safe ground until now. We previously thought, us white collar workers, our mind work is safe. But even as a programmer myself, it's been that's been one of the most interesting surprises of GPT-3, seeing it write rudimentary code. At this stage, nothing too impressive, but impressive given that it's not actually fine-tuned, trained on code. I think it's just same old situation, but just in a very interesting and new context now.
Yeah. I guess, are there any of those questions or challenges that specifically speak to you besides, you just said programmer? Are you worried that you're making something that might eventually shift programmers out of jobs, or?
No, because I'm not. I'm very much making a project which is aimed to raise awareness at the potential, for better and for worse. And in that regards, I see that this is actually as essential to trying to make the transition to AI as painless as possible, I suppose. I think a lot of it does lie in education and understanding. No, not necessarily. I'm not expecting everybody to have a technological understanding of how exactly neural networks work, but a loose understanding of the implications. I think that's going to be necessary going forwards. And I'd like to think that our game will have the potential to very much help there, because there's understanding, reading something on Wikipedia, and then there's understanding actually being faced with the thing itself and experiencing itself. And I think entering an AI-based dream is certainly, it's a way which really speaks to, I guess, the human as opposed to the scientist.
Definitely. I think we're doing similar things in that you're kind of trying to like raise the awareness for game devs. I'm trying to like get it to real theater people in that real life zone. Yeah. I think it's very cool.
Thank you. Like your project too, man. Like really, it's great. It's always great to find other people who are active in this area, because it is such a fascinating area. And as we said earlier, like I think at this point it's still very much in early days. I'm sure it'll have a huge potential in the future, but at this point, there's not much going on.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you're across the ocean. I just found your trailer and DM'd you, and here we are.
Here we are. Yep.
Crazy world. Yeah, so that was all sounds great. Seb is gonna make some sort of little cinematic using his game for the festival. And do you want to plug yourself again or any other things?
I mean, we have a website, which I'm sure you'll link to somewhere. And I'm looking forward to. I'll be posting regular updates on the games development on Twitter. But no, other than that, that's all there is for the time being, to be honest. The game still has a lot of development work needed on it. So no, I'm not going to go full plug mode just yet. At the moment, I'm still focused on development.
For sure. Well, thank you so much. I feel like I've got everything I need. Do you have any other questions or anything for me?
No, I mean, I'm fascinated to see what you come up with and see what the rest of this video will look like.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Seb. I'll let you get back to coding.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Been a pleasure, man.
All right.